Luan, and let me go to you first. What is your first impression upon hearing these two very different stories happening almost at the same time?
I would just realize, even though the online live broadcast is so hard and so on the spotlight, but the spotlight is still caught by the point with Liu Xin. You know, this is still this traditional medium, still enjoy the status as authoritative, as pointing the public attention.
We try to be that, yes.
Pointing the attention to regenerate attention. So I guess the choice of the topic from the public media still is very, very important, what we choose. Whereas one thing is, you know, gunpowder is considered dangerous by the weapon, you know, as a weapon, and also entertaining as a firecrackers. So when this tool is created, we always expect something gonna backfire. And one thing I found is really sad or a little bit pity with it is that public education, like edutainment elements, has been really giving a new chance in the web live broadcast, giving these micro communities a chance to be close to the teachers, to be feedback. And there's a pattern, it's so lack of attentions because it's lack of sensational points. So that's giraffe and the killing became the kind of the danger of web live broadcast. That's probably a little bit misunderstanding and give people a little bit off focus of the nature and wonderfulness of this new creation.
David, what was your impression when you heard these two stories happening almost at the same time? Of course, they are not related, but still, when they happened at the same time, it kind of makes you think, right? What was your thought?
Well, I mean, obviously, first of all, there's really no separation or any line between social media, personal media, and the mainstream worldwide media these days. YouTube is a great example of something that contains almost every conceivable kind of content. A lot of it is privately produced, some of it is mass-produced entertainment products, but there's really no dividing line. The other thing is, I think, you know, these are interesting examples because it literally is life and death, two
yes.
very natural human processes
Sure.
that people have a great fascination for. And I think that this is really no different than any time in history. People are fascinated with this, but now people have access to images and phenomenon that are very real. They're not manufactured, they're not fake. And I think there's a hunger for reality, for...
there's this rawness there, right?
Yeah, right. There's a hunger for that sort of thing in a world where there's so much fake products, fake news, and so many manufactured emotions. These are real stories in there, and you can see them happening before your eyes. So for good or bad, they capture a lot of the imagination and attention of the world media.
Yeah. Well, in February, the video of April the giraffe was blocked shortly and flagged for nudity and sexual content. Now, of course, there are people who are extremists when it comes to animal protection, and the the owner of the zoo said that there is a handful of these people that may not agree with the idea of using these kind of means to educate people. How do you see the arguments for and against the live streaming, Yanling?
The law today, when it's so decentralized, I guess at the end of the day, it truly is like this real organic system of internet. The true point is this self-regulations, because it is gone out of control and it's doomed to be out of control because it's completely decentralized. What is really need to be stressed, probably how to in fact that why we are focused on this nudity of the zoo instead of focusing on something maybe less mundane, maybe a little bit spend your time in the better areas. I guess that's a question it probably can be raised once again.
Yeah, David, what do you think was the motivation behind the people who are flagging such obviously harmless content, you know, for being sexually explicit?
Oh, you have to laugh. I don't know. I think that the tendency with all things like this is once they gain media attention, there are many parties that see a chance to actually attach themselves to the story and achieve a lot of attention and you know, press on their own.
Yeah.
Maybe some people really believe this, and they think that now is the time that they should speak out.
There were also people who were talking about respecting the animals' privacy.
Yeah, right. I mean, Yeah, I mean, it's hardly worth considering, except that it's a serious point that once you open up the doors to freedom of expression and free speech, then you can't really, it's not that easy to close it off, and you have to sort of take whatever you get.
What about the commercial aspect of this? I mean, Toys R Us, this brand, saw the huge opportunity and jumped in the middle of it, and all of a sudden you see this big sign of this toy company at the bottom, at the corner of the screen all the time when people watched it. What do you think of the commercial part of it? Is that controversial? Is there anything controversial about that? Yanling, maybe?
I wouldn't say that's controversial. It's just very good business with catching eyeballs and catching the wallet. That's just a very traditional way of doing business.
Well, let's take a look at this second story, of course. What do you think is the motivation of this man going online, posting such horrible video and then confessing the crime that he did? David, what do you think he would want to do that?
Well, people are disturbed, and I think there's a sad fact of modern day life that people are absorbed in the media. They watch TV. You know, we have a president who seems to be obsessed with TV news, and these images can feed off into one's own psyche, and people find it very naturally to sort of take their own disturbances, the things that they feel angry about, and to assert themselves and to put themselves into the media that everyone is watching. And I think that's just an example of what we have here. Frankly, I'm amazed that this doesn't happen more often, because Facebook is there, available, live streaming is very common. It's surprising to me, I mean, thank heavens this doesn't happen every day, because I think it could.
Well, I hope, yeah, by talking about it, we don't make more people aware of this, you know, possibility, crazy possibility. Now, the brutal murder footage was allowed to stay online for more than 2 hours before it was taken down. Facebook came under fire for it. Justin Sorofsky, Facebook's vice president for global operations, said in a statement that we disabled the suspect's account within 23 minutes of receiving the first report about the murder video and 2 hours after receiving a report of any kind. But we know we need to do better. So what do you think can be done better, Yanling? Is there anything that can be done at all? I
do understand that there's their responsibility to control the medium, the flow, but at the same time, again, I would stress that self-regulation is up to us to ignore. You know, the best method to feedback of those negativity and the horrible incident is to completely ignore it and take distance from it. I guess that's every.
Well, sometimes it's too late to ignore it, because the moment sometimes you just don't know what you're going to see, right? And until you see it, you realize that, you know, it's a piece of problematic video. David, what is your answer to this question?
Well, I think you're right. I think that with something like Facebook, with social media that has an immediacy, there's really not much you can do. Once the image is there, it's too late. Too many people have seen it. This is beyond the scope of this program, but I think part of the problem is that, you know, Duanling mentioned the notion of infotainment, that we have too much media and news now that is so connected to the profit motive that the news outlets cannot resist putting this stuff out there because it's going to earn them money. I think that maybe the ultimate solution is to try to make more of a separation between pure news and entertainment, and that way stories like this will go away very quickly because their actual news value is very slight. This is just a tragedy, and it does not deserve, you know, hundreds of millions of viewers obsessing about it, even though it is a tragedy.
Yeah, well, the live broadcasting boom, I'm glad you mentioned that, because it is a huge phenomenon in China as well, and that has been accompanied by plenty of criticism. For instance, what you just mentioned, people actually pay, or they give tips, virtual tips, for a good broadcast in their eyes. Now, sometimes to attract that kind of profit, people would do all kinds of things. Now, the Cyberspace Administration of China, or CAC, released new policies that took effect on December the 1st last year on live streaming industry, requiring content providers to obtain qualification and set rules on monitoring using user data. But it seems that some platforms are still promoting vulgar content to attract viewers. What can be done to effectively put these policies into action? It's a difficult question, but I have to ask you this. Yanling?
How to probably to fit with more high quality encourage more educational content on that. You know, there's just that much space or attention span or airtime for each viewer. So if they have more opportunity to see the positive content, useful content, probably will give it less space for the negative one. On the second point of view, it's probably also make this attention spans or this spectral, we relax the reality of this is just reality being exposed. Used to be this much spectrum, but now much wider. Is the reality is this is who we are, what we are here today. That's how it is.
Yeah, David, what is your take on this situation? And often the frustration is the regulators are chasing the innovators, right? The innovators have already been 2 miles down the lane and the regulators trying to catch up. And by the time they catch up, the people are already way ahead again. So what can be done?
Yeah, it is kind of a cat and mouse game, isn't it? The innovators are always way ahead of the people who are trying to regulate. I think it's a trade-off. I think that we have to accept that that some of this is going to get out. It's really not a new problem. It's just been exacerbated by the World Wide Web and by the explosion of new kinds of social media and the way we consume them. There's really not much you can do. I think the ultimate solution is sort of as just now that Duanling suggested, which was that we have to make other more worthwhile content and healthier and more edifying content more attractive, move people more in that direction instead of always going to the lowest common denominator. Unfortunately, there's really nothing else you can do.